We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win, and the others too.
In 1962, in Houston, Texas, United States President John Franklin Kennedy announced the new and exciting promise of space exploration. This promise would be fulfilled by NASA Apollo 11. Seven years later, July 20th, 1969, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin became the first humans to walk on the moon. Getting the two astronauts on the surface of the moon was Apollo 11's pilot, Michael Collins. After roaming the never-before-walked surface, Apollo 11 and the three astronauts safely and successfully returned back to Earth. These three were now heroes in the eyes of not only the United States, but the world. What many people forget about or do not know about are the 400,000 NASA Apollo 11 employees who put the three in the sky. These 400,000 positions range from mechanics, seamstresses, rescue crews, pilots, technicians, and many more. After previous space setbacks, NASA had over 500 million people watching the Apollo 11 launch from Kennedy Space Center on Florida's Merritt Island. Apollo 11 and its 400,000 employees had no room for error this time. This was the chance to change the world forever. One of the most important features of Apollo 11 was the Eagle. This vehicle allowed Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin to walk on the moon by descending from the shuttle.
Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot.
After the fatal Apollo 1 explosion, the living area for Apollo 11 was carefully and thoughtfully constructed. This living area, while the three were in space, would be known as the Columbia. On the descent back to Earth, the Columbia was designed to float in the ocean while the rescue team brought the crew back to land. August 13th, 1969, the three American heroes had their own New York City celebration. Role clarity. Understanding the role entirely, to avoid disaster, every employee had to be completely dedicated to their role. Role acceptance. Michael Collins, Apollo 11's pilot, accepted that he would not walk on the moon. 400,000 employees accepted their role. Formal roles and informal roles were also established. Two main leaders helped Apollo 11 get into the sky. This was Samuel Phillips and George Mueller. Both were engineers. Endless subgroups existed with their own leaders of these 400,000 employees. Department heads often collaborated and met to ensure that the goal would be achieved. The leader-follower relationship was mutual for Apollo 11. Bravery was demonstrated by all, not just the 3 crew members. Yet, 3 crew members did put their lives on the line to attempt the impossible and to represent their nation. Every role had its own dangerous aspect, not just the 3 who went to the moon. Bravery was demonstrated by Apollo 11 attempting the impossible after previous disasters. NASA, Apollo 11, had to trust one another. These 400,000 in-group ties were formed by the employees through connections and bonds. They had to trust one another as the nation and globe was trusting them again, and this time, this trust could not be broken. While in space, the 3 crew members had to trust each other that they would safely complete their specific goals. $500 million people watched around the world as Apollo 11 launched into space, attempting to do the unimaginable. This was an excellent opportunity to display what true group cohesion looks like. Bringing JFK's words to life before the decade ended, after it seemed impossible, inspired the world. Before Apollo 11, there was Apollo 1. The first adventure into space after Kennedy's announcement. This attempt to put humans into space ended tragically. All crew members aboard the craft died after they could not escape the fire. Members of Apollo 11 left 5 medallions on the surface of the moon in memory of the Apollo 1 crew. Great groups are respectful and honor those who have paved the way. This was a small act that could, and most likely went unnoticed by many. Yet, 2 years later, Apollo 1 was a part of this great group after risking it all for space exploration. Apollo 1 and Apollo 11 both displayed acts of selflessness, showing that they were great groups.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.